Thanks everyone for joining us for what we've started calling a masterclass, LeanLaw Masterclass. It's kind of a combination of diving in on certain features, workflows, how to be successful with, or how to have LeanLaw help you in your law firm. We also will use these for some new product update and just ways to get a chance for you to talk to us directly, ask questions and connect. So I'm Fred. I'm remembering now to finally introduce myself. I'm Fred Willerup. I'm the CTO at LeanLaw and responsible for product development. And I have Chase with me. Who are you, Chase?
Nobody remembers my title anymore. I was an intern for the longest time, and now that I have a real title, nobody knows. So I am the customer success manager, which means I get to lead the support team here at LeanLaw. So anyone joining LeanLaw for the first time, all the way through complicated trust accounting or leads questions, I help run that team. So you'll see me throughout the product, and if you ever chat with us, you'll probably interact with me at some point.
You probably know Chase already, most of you.
Probably.
So the topic today is payments, and sort of how LeanLaw helps you with payment-related workflows, taking payments, recording payments, some accounting questions around that, and then seeing payments for invoices and some reporting things. We're going to go through kind of a deep dive on payments as a theme. I mean, it never ends, these exciting topics that we have in LeanLaw billing, in law firm billing, right, Chase?
I would love to know more about law firm billing.
Okay. Well, why don't you take it away, Chase? I'm gonna kind of join in when I can, and then at the end of this, I will be talking high level about some new things we're doing in the product and what's coming. But I think Chase is going to run this, is going to take the reins, and feel free to ask questions either in the chat or in the Q&A box in the product. This is a webinar, so you can't speak, but we can hear you. So through chat and Q&A, and we'll try to get to your questions dynamically. If we don't get to your question, we'll definitely follow up afterwards. So take it away, Chase.
Cool. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. And there we go. So you should be able to see that now.
Yes, we do.
How's it look, Fred?
Looks great.
Awesome. So as Fred introduced, we're going to be focusing on payments and actually after payments tracking revenue. So we'll be looking at some revenue reports after we go through payments. So I wanted to go through probably the three most common payment workflows, being trust, leads, and then everything else, because those tend to be pretty similar. So let's go ahead and get started with trust. That's a pretty common workflow for firms, especially firms that are shifting towards trust only. Probably going to want to know how to handle payments in LeanLaw. I will skip the depositing part because we've talked about that in previous webinars, and there's lots of content on the site about that. So let's get paid for trust. Now, I do want to note first with trust that the firm is already holding the money, right? You've got that in retainer. The question is, how do we show that the firm is paying itself after the work is done? So once we've submitted and we've created our invoice, we've tracked our time, we've submitted that invoice to QuickBooks. All of these are post sending the invoice to QuickBooks. Once an invoice is in QuickBooks, the invoice will be listed under the QuickBooks tab in billing in LeanLaw here. That's where we find ourselves currently. Now, this is a big, long list of all of the invoices I currently have sitting in QuickBooks. Actually, that's all of them now. These filters up top are super, super important to helping us quickly identify different workflows for payments. Now, we're focusing on trust for this first part, so let's look at trust invoices. We will start by setting the state filter here to not paid, because we're only interested in paying things that aren't paid. And then we're going to set the trust option here to with trust. So this is only showing us invoices for clients and matters that have a trust account associated with them. So now we've gone from this big old list to this list of 5, way more manageable. Now from this point, there's a couple of ways we can record a trust payment. We can do them one at a time. So that's with the triple dots here at the end. You can mouse over to that, click it, and then pay from trust. That gives us a little helpful pop-up here where we can give a date and an amount. Pay from trust would then pay that. We can also do the same thing in bulk. So if I select a couple of these, and then at the bottom, instead of the triple dots, I'm going to select this drop down next to pay and then pay from trust. So now when I create this payment, it's going to be for those 3 invoices instead of just the 1. Some of you might be familiar with a different way to do this, to track trust payments. And that's actually in the trust account tab up top here, right next to the QuickBooks option. So we'll jump in there. And you'll notice at a glance, some of these clients matters have red next to them. That indicates they have open invoices that we can pay. So we'll go ahead and select the mini bike matter here. And then you'll notice on the right, there's that series of invoices and a nice big green record payment button. Now by default, it's going to select all of the invoices. But if we only wanted to pay 1, maybe 2, we could select those and then click record payment. It's going to ask us the same things that we saw on the QuickBooks page, given an amount and a date. And actually this one gives us the memo option as well. Go ahead and cancel out of that. So a couple of ways to record trust payments for invoices. Don't see any questions about that yet. So seems like everybody's pretty comfortable with processing payments for trust so far. Let's.
I don't know if you're planning on talking about what happens when you then actually pay the trust.
Yeah, let's do that. We've got plenty of time, right? So let's go ahead and actually pay one of these. So I'm going to select this bottom one here. Well, not very bottom, second from the bottom. And I'm going to pay it. Pay from trust. There we go. Pay from trust. It seems like my information is not up to snuff, so we're going to try a different one here. There we go, much better. So that was a $10 invoice that I just paid off. So when we pay invoices from trust in LeanLaw, LeanLaw writes a series of transactions to QuickBooks automatically for us. And that's what Fred was getting at. So let's take a look at those. And there's 2 main transactions we want to take a look at. The first is the liability account for that client. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and open up the register for this matter's liability. And there we go. There is a reduction of that liability by $10. So we know instead of having to keep that big old spreadsheet of everyone's balance, LeanLaw and QuickBooks are automatically keeping that for us. So that's the first transaction. The second is actually the movement of funds from the IOLTA to the operating account, the firm actually paying itself. So we can open up either the operating or the IOLTA account. Go ahead and open up operating. And it's not connected to that one. Go ahead and open up the IOLTA account. So there's that $10 payment. And both of those, both the liability transaction and the check out of the IOLTA or out of the trust account are happening automatically when we record that payment in LeanLaw. How's that, Fred?
It's good. I think you modeled it up a little bit. Those 2 transactions you showed were actually the same one. That's a check that essentially transfers money out of the trust account to our operating account with a check transaction. And then in addition to that, there's a payment transaction that we create. And that you can see under the sales for that client. And so that records that payment against AR and so on. anyway, you were showing the same transaction there. So there's the second one, which is the payment.
Yep, right there.
Um,
And of course, I'm being called out in the chat.
yeah, thank you. So I did want to mention, if you open the check transaction, that we've had some requests for providing a little more control here, specifically the or maybe it was the payment one. Yeah, the payment transaction. We're confusing ourselves
here. Come on.
The payment type that you'd like to be able to control that from LeanLaw when you create this payment, the payment method. So we're well aware that you'd like to add this, so you don't have to adjust it manually, and we will be adding that here hopefully soon. So anyway, I think back to your bit.
Yep.
Chase, thank you.
All right. So that's it for trust. Now we're going to jump to leads. I'm going to go ahead and clear all of our filters here. So we're back in LeanLaw in the QuickBooks tab, taking a look at what it takes to pay a leads invoice. So again, this assumes we've submitted the invoice to QuickBooks already, and now with leads, we need to upload that to whatever system that our client requires. And there's a whole host of them, but they all basically work the same way. And as far as LeanLaw goes, it's the same. So we're going to select the leads option here and pick with leads. So we're only looking at invoices that use leads or have leads set up for them. And in a very similar way to recording a trust payment, we can do them one at a time here by clicking the triple dots to the right and then clicking the leads option. And that will download that text file for us that we can then take to Serengeti, I think is what one of them is called.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of them, but then that text file is what you upload, and from there, that system handles it. So again, if we wanted to do them in bulk, we could select them with the checkboxes here on the left. And then under deliver, there's an option for leads. Now,
let me add a few notes on leads and combined leads. So leads create a zip file with individual files for each of the invoices that you've selected. So that creates four text files basically and downloads it, and you can upload those files to the client system. Combined leads creates one leads text file that takes all the information from all the invoices you've selected and combine them into one text file or one leads file. Mm-hmm. So this might be what you want when you upload a bunch of invoices for the same client.
Great. And Annette has actually asked, how do you set up a client for leads? I'm going to show that real quick here. Go ahead and open up a Matter, client, and I should back up. You have to set it up at the firm level first. So in your settings, under the firm setup, there's an option for leads, which you can flip on and off. Once that's set up, you can then open a specific matter, toggle this leads, enable leads for this client on, and then fill out the necessary information with those IDs. And the upload system will provide you with most of these IDs. You'll just need to make sure that you have correctly entered them into LeanLaw. Otherwise, the systems will kick them back. Normally, they're pretty good about telling you what they didn't like. And so you read the little error message and you're able to figure out, oh, this ID was incorrect.
Well, if you have trouble with leads, let us know. We have some experience tweaking those settings so that it'll work. There's another question here, which is great. So with leads, somebody says we're downloading leads files, but then the invoice doesn't go to QuickBooks. Yes, you can download leads files from the draft window. So right here, you can download leads files. I recommend that you send the invoices to QuickBooks first as part of your billing workflow, that the invoice really should be in QuickBooks. Even if you're not sending it to the client that way, you need to record it in QuickBooks for the AR. This is accounts receivables. It needs to be in QuickBooks. Now, once it's in the QuickBooks tab, then you can download the leads file and upload it to the client. And then eventually a payment will flow in, and we'll record the payment for that invoice sort of further down the road. So hopefully that helps.
I do want to mention too, if you download a leads invoice from the draft step, it isn't actually completed. There's some identifiers in leads invoices that show if it is a draft invoice or a finalized invoice. Unless you go in and tinker with that afterwards, all of the leads invoices you download from the draft step will not be accepted because they show us draft still.
For more clarification here from the chat window. So from Denora, yes, you have to manually record the payment that's coming in from the leads invoice. We will show that next, how to do that. Annette, I think Chase just showed, you're asking how to download leads once it's already in QuickBooks. Well, that's what Chase was just showing. This QuickBooks tab, the invoice is already in QuickBooks, and you can download the leads file from here. Now, it will not work if you make changes to the invoice in QuickBooks. So there is actually a sort of caveat there. Should really be very careful honestly, making changes to invoices once they're in QuickBooks, because it undermines some of these features here. Okay, I think we can move on from that topic, Chase. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the questions. We appreciate it.
That's enough leads for me. I'm good for that.
Yeah.
So now onto everything that isn't leads and isn't trust. Again, same spot. We're going to stay in the QuickBooks section of billing here. I'm going to clear out my filters. And we'll start with that state filter to not paid. So this is any invoice that is not paid, and we're not interested in trust. So I'm going to say without trust. Now these are all of the invoices, leads and non-leads, that are currently unpaid without trust. I know lots of properties and drop downs and things to keep in mind there. But this is now the list of invoices that we want to track payments for. Now, you can enter these payments in QuickBooks. That works just fine. But we want to bring as many of those features to LeanLaw as possible. That way, whomever is processing billing and invoicing doesn't have to jump between the two platforms all the time. So bringing a lot of that critical workflow into LeanLaw. All right, on to billing, or receiving a payment rather.
Chase, if you don't mind backing up one step.
Yep.
So what I want to mention here is that there are options in QuickBooks to get payments electronically that would automate this. I'm thinking we should probably start there.
Sure.
We encourage you to use QuickBooks Merchant Services and electronic payment to take payments for your invoices. You'll get a payment link in the email sent out to the client. They click on that and pay with credit card or ACH. And then in that scenario, the payment will flow in automatically to QuickBooks and to LeanLaw. And you don't have to do any of these manual steps that we're just going to talk about. So maybe, Chase, you can start with showing what you need to do to get set up for the electronic payment piece.
Yeah. So as far as LeanLaw concerned, just a couple of checkboxes here. We'll jump to settings up top. And then on the left, we'll be at the very bottom in the QuickBooks section. And there's two checkboxes here in the middle for invoice payment methods, online credit card and online ACH. Now, what these do is they default that payment method to be on or off. So once you've set up those payment options through Intuit, you're able to permanently say, yes, I always want to allow credit card or always allow ACH on invoices. So that way, when the client receives the electronic version via email, there will be a link for them to pay. So like Fred said, don't have to worry about any of these next steps or tracking the payments in QuickBooks because that will be done automatically. And again,
yeah.
This,
so I think, go ahead, Chase.
I was going to say, this does require you to set up the merchant services with Intuit in your QuickBooks account. And I am not well versed in that. So that's a topic for another time.
Yeah, and yes, now I think we can talk about, so when we're not paying from trust, when we don't have electronic payment automatically handled this way, now we're talking about how to manually record payments that come in with check or some third-party system, so that that payment is recorded correctly. So that's what's next now.
Yes. Great. Okay, so like Fred said, didn't pay electronically. Say someone has come in with a check or rolls of cash, and we need to record the payment for that.
Where I'm from, it's pickled herring that we normally get paid in, but that can be recorded here too.
I don't know if law firms are going to take that in the States, or Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't even want to try and get into how to process a Bitcoin payment. That is a very modern law firm that's taking Bitcoin. Okay, so assuming we're not handling pickled herring or Bitcoin as forms of payment, and it's just traditional checks or cash, it's going to look very similar to what we were doing with trust earlier. So that's the triple dots on the right side. We can record a payment, pick our date, the amount, the payment method, which is actually something we source directly from QuickBooks, and the reference. So if there's a check number or some other kind of specific identification, add that here. And then we would click pay. And that creates the payment in QuickBooks, just as if we had entered a payment directly in QuickBooks to begin with. And similar options here where we can select multiple, scroll down to the bottom, and select pay. So we'll do record payment. Now it won't let me because they are from different clients. So I'm going to deselect that one and record payment. There we go. So same thing. Now if I were to create the payment, it would split that payment between the two invoices that I had selected.
Here is also worth mentioning that the filters on the left will be handy. If you're just concerned with a single client, you get a check from a client, you can go in here and then pick the client on the left, and then you'll see all the invoices that's open for that particular client. And you can pay one or multiple with that payment that came in. So I think in general, what we're trying to get across here is that you kind of have to create your own workflow every month. Like, you create some invoices, you pay the ones from trust that need to be paid, you download leads files. Then when you get payments, you record those. There's all these kind of tools in here that doesn't tell you exactly how to put together your workflow. That's kind of up to you. We're just going through kind of these options here in some detail so that you can put together your own workflow every month. Hopefully it's helping to do that.
Annette, to answer your question, yes, if you record the payment in either software, it will sync to the other. So if we enter a payment in QuickBooks, the invoice in LeanLaw will show as paid, and that payment will appear in LeanLaw for some of our revenue reports, which we'll actually cover later. Cool. Now there is one last thing here for payments that I want to quickly cover, and that is third-party payments systems. So some of you are probably familiar with softwares like LawPay. Some of our firms currently use Gravity Legal. Both of those softwares and others allow you a different avenue to process those payments instead of going through QuickBooks. Some firms have reasons for doing that. Currently, we don't have an easy way to do that, or we don't have nice buttons to click to set those up. And so what those firms have found is that they can add those payment links to the memo fields of invoices. So if I open up an invoice here in QuickBooks, there we go. You can put that payment link in one of these two options. Now you can also do that in LeanLaw while the invoice is in the draft step. I'm not sure where firms are currently adding that link in, but that is where you would put it if you're using one of those softwares.
And can you show real briefly how to set it for all invoices?
How to set the payment for all invoices?
Put in a payment link for all invoices.
Sure. So you can change that memo field again in our settings.
In QuickBooks.
I'm a little rusty on that one.
Okay, anyway, there's a place in here in settings where you can set the default memo field. Sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot there.
If you give me about 5 minutes, I can monkey around and figure it out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Let's move on. There's a way to do that.
Yes. Annette asks if we can go back to that menu. Open that up. And she was asking about this trust information here in the memo field. And yes, LeanLaw automatically makes that. The idea is it's a statement or an update on the ongoings of the client's trust retainer. So instead of having to send a whole trust statement every time you send or you pay an invoice with trust, LeanLaw automatically includes that in the memo field of invoices that have trust accounts. So in this example, whole lot of information there. I can't, QuickBooks won't let me expand that. That's fine. It's giving us an update, kind of like a bank statement on what's happening. So we started, this was the previous account balance. We're now charging an extra 10. This is how much was in the retainer previously. This is the payment made from the retainer.
Maybe flip over to LeanLaw to show where that's configured.
I do know that one.
We can see it more clearly there.
Sure. So again, we're in settings and we're going to go to the trust accounting section. And then here at the bottom, we can edit this invoice trust notice. So we'll click the customize option. And then Fred has given us a whole bunch of really complicated properties and values and things we can throw together.
This is my proudest work, this page here. It's the most complicated I could come up with.
We're asking our users to put on their engineering hats for a second.
So Chase, I think this is a little off topic. So let's move on from here. And if you need more information about this, contact our chat and we can walk through it with you in person here. But I think we should go back to the agenda.
Okay.
But we appreciate the question though.
So that's actually all I've got for payments. We went over trust, leads, and then everything else under the sun, at least as I'm aware. Next, we're actually going to be taking a look at reporting. And we covered reporting a couple of months ago, actually. But Fred and I wanted to take a closer look at some of the reports that are important in payments, whether that's collections or in looking at revenue. We wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive on those reports.
Yeah, and so to kind of tee it up, we're gonna show two primary sort of use cases that you might be using reports for as it relates to payments. One is collections, so it's collecting money from your clients, which of course is critical. So we have some reports and other tools that can help you with that. We're going to go through that as one area. And then the second one is compensation reports. And compensation reports is kind of a big topic, but we want to use this opportunity to show you how payments coming in can be, we have reports that automate how those payments can be split up between partners or attorneys or users in the firm to help with compensation calculations. So we have reports there. We're also going to show a few other bits and pieces in the reports that might relate to payments that you might not be aware of. So yeah, do you want to get going on that, Chase?
Yes, we certainly can. Before I do, there's a question from Amber. Is there a session or training for beginners who are new to the software? Yes. Oh, thank you, Fred. Yes, there is. Typically, we will have you schedule an appointment with our onboarding team, but there are quite a few resources in the FAQ or knowledge base. You can find that here in that question mark up top, and then documentation. Looks like we got cut off there a little bit. That's fine. There's a bunch of helpful articles here on getting set up, on some of the basic functionality and navigation of LeanLaw, and then anything that you might not find the answer to, you can ask in the support chat down here at the bottom and ask us any kind of specific questions or things you might run into. So, and there's that helpful message that went out from me notifying us all about this masterclass. Cool. All right, let's go take a look at some reports. So the main report that we're looking at is Well, the receivables and the aging report. Fred, should we start with receivables or the revenue by attorney reporting?
I think receivables. Let's talk collections first.
All right. It definitely helps to get paid. So real quick as an overview, the receivables page is, and actually there's two places to look at the receivables. There's the actual report. So I was in the main reports page, and then receivables here under the revenue reports. But also there's an option in the billing page. That far right tab is receivables. That's the same report. So if you don't want to have to jump between the billing and reports page, you don't have to. Okay, back to the actual report. So receivables is an overview of the inbound and outbound of the firm. How much in invoices have you sent out? And what does that, look like over the course of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What clients and matters are we waiting to be paid for? So kind of like a quick check-in on, how long we're waiting for payments from certain clients.
And this report is also available in QuickBooks and with various sort of filters and so on, but we're exposing that same information here. And you can quickly see here, clearly we need to talk to Sammy. Lots of old aging revenue here that we can, chase down. So anyway, the receivables report is kind of your starting point for this.
And this is definitely something that I find is helpful to make part of your usual process if you are in charge of invoicing and tracking payments, and maybe you're the bookkeeper for the firm. For me, this is kind of the bread and butter. This is something I would be checking every day to see where we're at with different clients, especially if you have more than my measly 10. Lots to keep track of here.
So I think the other place at Chase that we may want to show is over in billing, where we are now familiar, QuickBooks tab. There is an option to show overdue invoices here.
Yes.
And so this is another place where you look at it more from an invoicing point of view, or individual invoices. And you see some little coloration over on the right that helps you decide which ones you should start with. So that also helps you a little bit.
Yep.
And then I think we're going to talk about how to, tools for following up, resending invoices or statements.
Yep. It's actually, I get asked quite frequently, hey, Chase, someone hasn't paid me, but they don't have any new time or billable items. How do I prompt them? How do I send them a reminder to pay that invoice? And there's two ways to do it. And really, I favor the QuickBooks option, but we'll cover both. So Sammy here has not paid their invoice. And we want to send them a prompt, hey, please pay your invoice. Now we could resend them that original invoice. So we LeanLaw, we go through the delivery options, go down to the bottom, deliver, and email. Yes, we could do that. Sometimes there's situations where we have multiple, or there's a particular situation last week that came in. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But anyways, that solution wasn't going to work for this particular firm. And so what we suggest doing is, instead of doing it in LeanLaw, coming into QuickBooks and actually generating a statement. So that's opening up the client's account, new transaction, and then statement. So from here, you're able to pull different types of statements. And then instead of sending multiple invoices, or like in this firm's particular case, that's not going to work. You just need to say, hey, here's the total, please pay it. You're able to generate different statements for different time periods and then deliver that. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say the accountants, the proper accountants in the chat here are more than welcome to give me feedback on this because, as we saw before, I am not an accounting pro.
So one other note here. So you can tell here that we're bouncing a little bit back and forth between QuickBooks and LeanLaw here. This is an area where we hope to add some more control. from LeanLaw so that you can click here and email the invoice out to the client again with one click. But you can't send the statement from here. So we're hoping to add that from here, so you don't have to bounce back and forth when you do the follow-up. So.
Paul's got a question. Noticing the exclude archived matters by default. Is there a good reason for this? Typically seems like users would want to see all outstanding.
Yeah, we've had some issues here. I mean, we think you should not, and we've actually considered preventing you from archiving matters that have outstanding AR. We think it's very bad practice to archive items in LeanLaw and Quickbooks that have open money concerns, a trust balance that has a balance, or a open AR. So basically, we would encourage you to never archive clients or matters that have open AR trust balances. If you do, it'll disappear from certain reports by default. And so we actually have considered preventing you from archiving it as a help, so that you don't make that mistake. I'd very open to your feedback if you don't think it should work this way. But there might be some reasons why you deliberately archive something that you should write things off before you archive a client if you're not going to be collecting that money. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's what I've got right now, I think.
Cool. So that's all I've got for receivables. The next report I'm interested in is actually the revenue by attorney report. So let's take a look over there.
Well, and this relates to compensation. So yes. we want to share, and some of you use this, some of you might not be aware of this feature, but we have built out a lot of functionality here to help with compensation. So we're going to show some of those options and all that. So.
Yep. So before we take a look at that report, I'm actually going to run an invoice and get it paid. So I've got one ready to go here in drafts, not from Sammy, thank goodness. We've got a client here named Blue Ox in draft. Go ahead and open that up and take a look at it for a second. So we've got a couple of things. We've got a fixed fee, some time entries, and expense down there at the bottom. And we're going to go ahead and approve and submit that. Okay, so that's now over in QuickBooks. I'm going to record a payment. Say they just happened to walk in with the exact amount that I needed. We'll say that's cash. And did I do that correctly? I did do that correctly. Yep. Record payment, cash, pay. Great. So we've paid ourselves. Now I want to take a look at how that revenue is actually split out, because there's a couple of users on that, and there's some other interesting things I want to show. So we'll open up the revenue by attorney report. Okay, and we're going to take a look at, we'll go ahead and open up mine and see what I've got going on. So currently the only client that I've received revenue for this month is from that Blue Ox client that we just paid. Kind of reading across here how to interpret this. Billed services is time, billed time. Billed total is the total amount billed, and then collected is whatever was collected as part of a payment on that invoice. And we can actually drill in further to that and see the specific payment that came in. So there we go. Now, why did I only get $100 for this? Well, if we go back and take a look at that invoice, billing, and let's do paid, and we will open up that original draft. I only did $100 worth of work on that invoice. So I'm only getting paid out $100 worth. Now, Buster Smith did way more. So if we were to open up his part of that revenue, we would see he has made significantly more than me. We'll go ahead and open that up. There we go. So 600. And we can see that detail there.
Pro tip, Chase, here from this triple dot menu, you can open the invoice and look at it directly.
I can't believe that you've added features and I didn't know about it. Look at that. He's so fast. And actually, there's a couple options here. So show the invoice, great. The original's great. We've also got quick links to opening the invoice or the payment in QuickBooks. So we don't have to go to QuickBooks, fumble through and try and find the invoice or the payment. We can just do that directly from the report here. Yes, Sarah, Fred loves to leave little Easter eggs laying around. Allocation. Oh, well, there we go. Cool. Magic Easter eggs. Okay. So let's back out of there for a second. So on that invoice, we'll open that up again. Thank you, Fred. A couple of things here. So time entries, we see who those are associated with. And on that expense, we see that Buster Smith is the one that's responsible for it. However, the fixed fee does not have anyone assigned to it. So this $1,000 isn't automatically assigned to myself or the other attorney, Buster Smith. Where does it go? It's been paid. Well, so we'll back out here. Back out all the way back to the main revenue by attorney report. And you'll notice down here at the bottom of this report beneath the users are a couple of unallocated sections. So unallocated fixed fees has $1,010. $1,000 of that is actually made up of that fixed fee that I did not allocate, that no one was necessarily responsible for. So that $1,000 goes to the firm. If I had expenses that I didn't assign a user to, the same thing would happen. I would see an unallocated amount there. Fred, are you ready to talk about origination?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So there's one other piece. You'll notice that Sammy here is Sammy Witch, who might or might not be related to the person who owes us a considerable amount of money, happens to also be in the firm here and is set as the originating returnee on this, or originating user rather, for this client. If we open up our matter here and take a look, open them up. There we go, down at the bottom, Sammy Witch is set as the originating. What does that mean? Well, a firm can be set up in such a way that if someone who isn't actually working on the case brings the case to the firm, they receive an origination cut as part of that payment. So a portion of whatever we're paid by Blue Ox, Sammy will receive because they brought it to the firm. So we can set multiple originators, we can set no originators, and we can actually change the percentage that the originating users receive. And we can do that in settings up top, and then over on the left, we'll go to reports. There we go. So here in the middle, we've got that originating attorney share, which currently is 0. So Sammy would actually receive nothing for that, unless we manually set a percentage. And then there's the firm share. So we can set the firm to always receive a part of that payment, or that revenue rather. The firm share is not related to origination. It's actually part of the bigger revenue settings like we're looking at here. And there's a couple options underneath if we want to get real specific.
Maybe before we get to the detailed options, set a percentage and let's see what happens. Because I think we want to start there.
10%, that sound good? Okay, I'm doing it anyways. 10% for origination. Let's go back and take a look at that revenue report now. Revenue by attorney. Oh, hey, look at that. Some new options have appeared. So as soon as we set that option, we now get some additional columns here in this revenue by attorney report. We've got share, origination, and adjusted share. So what do those all mean? Well, Collected is payment that was collected towards services. So for myself, that was the $100 worth of time that I tracked. Next column over is share. Helpful tooltip here. Collected minus allocation for firm and origination. So Sammy receives 10% of the overall payment. So I am losing $10 there. And Sammy is receiving his cut here, $70. Geez. Origination is if someone is set as an originating user for a matter, this is where they will see, or whomever will see their cut. And then the adjusted share is the total accumulation, or calculating across what that looks like. So if I had an allocation cut, my adjusted share would be $100, or rather it would be 160 because it's a 10%. So matching Sammy there. Getting reshuffled around. Fred, I feel like I'm missing something on this report.
No, it's great. I mean, these columns here show, how much you worked, how much you earned for the firm. We take out a cut, you might get it back in that origination column, and then we show the adjusted share at the end. So if our revenue, if our compensation system at the firm is that we pay people the amount of time that they have collected, less origination, this report in the adjusted share column would show us for a given time period how much we should pay them. So we have lots of options here how to control this because there's a lot of detail. For example, Chase mentioned the unallocated fixed fee. Now, how do we deal with that? Well, it appears in this column down here that says unallocated fixed fee, but we have an option to always allocate that to the responsible attorney. So that's one idea that you can use. We also have an option to always require fixed fees to have a user assigned. So that's right there. Mm-hmm. And you can also go in, maybe it was a mistake that you didn't have a user assigned. You can actually go back to the fixed fee after it's been billed under the matter. And so in here, you can assign it, if you open it up, you can assign it to a user here. So then just by doing that, even if it's been billed, we will immediately update the report to account for that. You can see that $1,000 was pulled out of unallocated fixed fees and now is added to Chase's collected amount. The $10, by the way, was that trust payment we made earlier. It's not related to this client. That's throwing our numbers off a little bit. But so I think, if you go back to the settings, Chase, let's just have a quick peek at now that we've looked at the sort of base case here. Maybe add a 5% firm share. And then let's try, you can see some other ideas there, but let's try and click allocate expenses. So let's do that and look at the report again. You can now see we take out 5%, the 85 right there for the firm. This might be for firm overhead in general. We take that out of everybody's collections, and all the numbers adjust accordingly with origination, firm share, etc. Now, the other option we enabled at the same time was the expense column here. This allows us to see expenses on this same report for each user. And you might use this to, if the attorney maybe have paid for those expenses. Some of our firms, the attorneys basically have separate practices and pay their own expenses. And that's why we want to report it here in a separate column. I think the final topic here to discuss is sort of how this works when it comes to partial payments. Maybe Chase, go and adjust the payment real quick to like half or something, and let's turn all the percentage options off that we turned on to simplify it.
Yep.
So let's say we only received a partial payment here, and we go back and let's just kind of simplify this back again. Now, the way it works is that when you collect money, we will start at paying off expenses fully. So you can see the $100 here is allocated to expenses. So we took the partial payment that came in, took $100 away from expenses, and then those funky numbers you see up there under each user is a proportionally allocated amount for the remainder of that payment. So we handle partial payments, we think, correctly this way, as opposed to just sort of split it out between all the different items on the invoice. When a second payment comes in, maybe a different month or later, now we know that we already allocated the payment, and now the second payment will be allocated fully to kind of fill up the remainders for the user fees. I think so. If these last 10 minutes have not left you somewhat confused, I don't blame you. What we really wanted to get across here is that we've been building this out over the last 6 months or so for various clients that needed it, and it's here for you to help with your compensation workflows. If some of these formulas and options we have built in here, and some of them we haven't shown because it gets a little too in the weeds. If this doesn't quite cover your compensation algorithms in your firm, let us know, and we might be able to help and adjust and maybe add some more options. We really think this is starting to become one of the most kind of powerful reporting pieces of LeanLaw, where you can fully automate your partner compensation and attorney compensation workflows. So that is, if you have questions, let us know right now or later. Hopefully it was helpful to go through it, even though it was a little on the complicated side. Hey, it is a masterclass, right?
There's definitely a lot to cover here. And if you feel like you missed anything or want to review, this will go out as a recording within the next couple of days. So you're able to pop back and take a look at anything you weren't quite sure about.
Somebody appreciated this and said it was better than somebody who should not be named, one of our competitors. So we appreciate that. No, we really think we're really proud of this piece of our product. So thank you.
Paul asks,
somebody asked. Oh, go ahead.
No, you.
Paul asks, what are unallocated expenses? These are basically expenses that are not assigned to any user, or if we have that option off that said allocate expenses, then all expenses are basically in this category, because the assumption here is that if we have expenses on an invoice, we're really just recovering costs. And so this should not go to an individual attorney as their compensation. We're really, I mean, the firm pays expenses or have incurred some cost or whatever. And that's why it's in this separate category from the attorney section. It's hopefully that makes sense.
Well, I think that about wraps it up, Fred.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're at the hour almost. Let's wrap it up a few minutes early. We really appreciate how interactive this is. So keep asking your questions. It makes us better, and give us feedback. It makes the product better. And we will continue doing these monthly, different topics. We don't have a topic set for next month.
Yes, we
I
do.
know one topic that has that we will do at some point is expense management, is one that we haven't done yet. And so that might be a candidate, but let us know if there's certain areas that you feel we should do a deep dive on, and we're very open to ideas. So, and also we're interested in honest feedback on how we do these. We try to prepare as much as possible, but we also keep it a little loose and fun, just so that it's not too boring. I don't know if we're hitting the right balance. Let us know if we're not. So we want this to be helpful for you. Anything else, Chase? Are we going to wrap up?
That's it for me.
Thank you for being awesome.
Thank you for being awesome.
Thank you, all of you, and see you next time.
See ya.